I still remember the exact sound my daughter made the night she finally broke. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't even a scream. It was this small, strangled sound, like something inside her had snapped quietly, the way a thread breaks when you pull it too tight for too long. And the worst part, the person who caused it was standing right outside her bedroom door, smiling. My mother-in-law. And in that moment, something inside me snapped too. Because she thought she had all the power. She thought she could keep hurting us forever. She thought I was too weak, too scared, too dependent to ever fight back. She was wrong. She had no idea what I was about to do to her life. If you've ever felt trapped, disrespected, pushed to your absolute limit by someone who should have protected you, you'll understand exactly how this story feels. Before we go any further, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because stories like mine aren't just about revenge, they're about survival, justice, and finding your strength when the world tries to break you. My name is Amanda, and this is how my mother-in-law destroyed my life, until I destroyed hers right back. When I first met Linda, she hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. At the time, I thought it was warmth. Later, I realized it was control. She had this way of smiling without her eyes moving, like her face was performing kindness while something cold sat behind it, watching, calculating. "Welcome to the family," she told me that first day, gripping my shoulders. "We take care of our own." I didn't know then what she really meant. It wasn't about love. It was about ownership. I met her son, Daniel, in college. He was gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of man who apologized when other people bumped into him. He felt safe. After growing up with an emotionally distant father, Daniel felt like a warm place to rest. We dated for 4 years before he proposed. Linda cried at the engagement dinner. Actual tears. "I've waited so long for this," she said, holding his hand like he was still 10 years old. At the time it seemed sweet. Now I know those tears weren't about happiness. They were about losing control. The first cracks showed after the wedding. Small things, subtle things, the kind that make you question yourself. Like how she'd accidentally call me by Daniel's ex-girlfriend's name. Or how she'd rearrange our kitchen when she visited. Or how she'd say things like, "Oh Amanda, you're trying your best, aren't you? Trying. Not succeeding. Always trying." It escalated after our daughter Lily was born. That's when Linda changed completely. The first time she held Lily, she didn't even look at me. "She looks just like Daniel," she said. Then quietly she added, "Thank goodness." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. From that day on, she inserted herself into everything. She showed up unannounced. Criticized my parenting constantly. Told Daniel I was too sensitive when I complained. And Daniel, he never defended me. Not really. He'd just sigh and say, "She's old, Amanda, that's just how she is." But that phrase, "that's just how she is," became the excuse for everything she did. The torment wasn't loud. That's what made it worse. It was slow. Precise. Psychological. Like death by 1,000 invisible cuts. She'd whisper things to Lily when she thought I couldn't hear. "Grandma knows how to take care of you better than Mommy." Or, "Mommy gets angry too easily, doesn't she?" At first Lily was too young to understand. But children absorb tone before they understand words. And I began noticing something that broke my heart. Lily started flinching around me. Not because I hurt her. Because Linda was poisoning her against me. One afternoon when Lily was 5, I overheard something that made my hands shake. We were at Linda's house. I was in the kitchen when I heard her voice from the living room. Soft, coaxing. "You know, sweetie," Linda whispered, "if Mommy ever yells at you, you can tell Grandma, and maybe someday you could live here instead." My vision went white. I walked into the room. Linda smiled like she'd done nothing wrong. Lily looked confused. Small. Torn. That night I confronted Daniel. She's trying to turn our daughter against me, I said. He rubbed his temples. You're exaggerating. That word. Exaggerating. It felt like a slap. Years passed, and the psychological torture grew worse. Linda would sabotage me quietly. She'd tell Daniel I forgot to pick Lily up from school, when she was the one who had taken her early without telling me. She'd tell relatives I had emotional problems. She even once told Lily I didn't want her. That one nearly broke me. I spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight, heart racing, wondering how someone could hate me so deeply, for no reason. I wasn't stealing her son. I wasn't hurting anyone. I just existed. And that was enough for her to wage war. But everything changed the night Lily made that sound. The breaking sound. She was 8 years old. I found her curled on her bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her little body shaking silently. What happened? I whispered. She hesitated. Then she said something that froze my blood. Grandma said you don't really love me, that you only love Daddy and someday you'll leave me. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. That was the moment. The exact moment. When something inside me shifted from pain to something colder, something sharper. I stopped crying that night because I realized something terrifyingly clear. Linda wasn't just hurting me anymore. She was destroying my daughter. And that meant one thing. The war had officially begun. I just didn't know yet how far I'd be willing to go to end it. After that night, I stopped seeing Linda as a difficult mother-in-law. I started seeing her as something far more dangerous. A predator who hunted quietly, who didn't scream or threaten, who smiled while she poisoned everything around her. And the most terrifying part, no one else saw it. For weeks after Lily told me what Linda said, I barely slept. I'd lie awake listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator down the hall, staring into the darkness, my chest tight with anger and helplessness. I kept replaying Lily's voice in my head. Grandma said you don't really love me. Every time I thought about it, my stomach twisted like someone was wringing it out. How do you fight someone who hurts your child without leaving bruises? How do you prove emotional cruelty that happens in whispers? How do you protect your daughter when your own husband refuses to believe you? I tried the calm route first. The reasonable adult route. One evening after dinner, I sat Daniel down. My hands were shaking, but I forced my voice to stay steady. We need to set boundaries with your mother, I said. She cannot be alone with Lily anymore. He looked at me like I'd just insulted him. That's insane, Amanda. I heard what she said to Lily. She would never. She did. He rubbed his face, exhausted. You're making this worse than it is. There it was again. That phrase. That dismissal. Like I was the problem. Like my pain was an inconvenience. And something inside me started to crack. The next weeks were hell. Linda escalated. Not openly. Never openly. But with surgical precision. She'd praise Lily when she ignored me. Oh, such a polite girl, not like your mother when she was young. She'd give Lily gifts and whisper, "Don't tell Mommy, she'll just get jealous." And slowly, horrifyingly, it started working. Lily began pulling away from me. Small things at first. She stopped running to hug me when I picked her up from school. She started choosing to sit next to Linda at family dinners instead of me. She hesitated before answering when I asked if she loved me. That hesitation, it felt like someone pushing a knife into my ribs, twisting it slowly. One night I overheard something that shattered me completely. Lily was on the phone with Linda. I wasn't trying to listen. But then I heard Lily's small voice trembling. "Grandma, is Mommy going to leave me someday?" My hands went numb. I stood frozen in the hallway. Linda's voice came through the speaker, smooth and poisonous. "Well, sometimes people leave when they stop loving you, but don't worry, Grandma will always be here." Something inside me collapsed in that moment. I had never hated anyone before. Not truly. But in that second, hatred bloomed in my chest like fire. Hot. Relentless. Consuming. I confronted Linda the next day. For the first time, I didn't try to be polite. We were alone in her kitchen. The air smelled like stale coffee and lavender cleaner. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock, loud and sharp. "Stay away from my daughter," I said quietly. She turned slowly, smiling. "Oh, Amanda, are you having another one of your emotional episodes?" My hands curled into fists. "You're manipulating her, you're lying to her." Linda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're not strong enough to keep her," she said. "Deep down she knows that." Her words hit like a punch to the chest. Then she leaned even closer and said the sentence that changed everything. "Eventually she'll choose me." I left her house shaking so badly I could barely drive. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when I told Daniel what she said. He didn't get angry. He didn't defend me. He just looked tired. "Amanda, maybe you should talk to someone," he said gently. "You seem paranoid lately." Paranoid? The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. In that moment, I realized something devastating. I wasn't just fighting Linda. I was fighting alone. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I began doubting myself, questioning my memory, wondering if maybe, just maybe, she was right. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I was failing as a mother. That's how psychological abuse works. It doesn't just hurt you. It rewrites your reality. Then came the night that changed everything. The night I reached my absolute breaking point. It was Lily's 9th birthday party. I had spent weeks planning it. Decorations, cake, her favorite princess theme. Everything perfect. Everything full of love. But Linda arrived late. And she came carrying a large gift box. Bigger than anything I had bought. Lily's eyes lit up immediately. She ran to her. "Grandma." Linda knelt dramatically and said loudly, so everyone could hear. "This is from someone who always puts you first." I felt my stomach drop. Inside the box was a brand new tablet. Something we had specifically told Lily she couldn't have yet. Because she was too young. Because we wanted to limit screen time. But Linda knew that. She did it on purpose. And then she said the words that detonated the room. "Grandma doesn't believe in silly rules. I trust you more than Mommy does." I saw Lily look at me. With confusion. With hurt. With distance. Like I was the villain. Not her. And that's when something inside me finally died. The last piece of patience. The last piece of hope that things would get better. I realized something cold and absolute. Linda wasn't going to stop. Not until she took everything from me. My daughter. My marriage. My sanity. My life. That night after everyone left, I sat alone in the dark living room. The house was silent except for the soft buzz of the ceiling fan. My hands were still trembling. But not from fear anymore. From clarity. For the first time in years. I stopped thinking about surviving her. And started thinking about something else. Ending her control. Completely. Permanently. And as that thought settled into my mind, I felt something terrifying. Relief. Because in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. I just didn't know yet how devastating it would be for her. The strange thing about reaching your breaking point is how quiet it feels. There was no dramatic moment, no shouting, no tears, just a deep, cold stillness settling inside my chest like ice. That night, sitting in the dark after Lily's birthday party, I realized something I should have understood years earlier. Linda didn't need to be confronted. She needed to be exposed. Because her greatest weapon wasn't cruelty. It was invisibility. She thrived in shadows, in whispers, in subtle manipulations no one could prove. She had spent years making me look unstable, emotional, overreactive. So if I fought her directly, I would lose. But if I could make everyone see her, she would destroy herself. And that's when the plan began. The next morning I did something simple, something small, but it changed everything. I bought a voice recorder. Tiny, no bigger than a matchbox. My hands trembled when I held it. Not from guilt, from adrenaline. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to Linda. I was preparing for her. The first time I used it, my heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it. Linda had come over unannounced, as usual. She walked in without knocking, carrying cookies and that fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. I left the recorder running in my pocket. We were alone in the kitchen when she started. She always started the same way. Soft, casual. "Oh, Amanda, you look tired," she said, glancing at me with mock concern. "Motherhood must be overwhelming for someone like you." Someone like me. I forced myself to smile. "What do you mean?" She leaned against the counter, lowering her voice. "You were never really maternal," she whispered. "I saw that from the beginning." My pulse raced. She kept going. "You know, if anything ever happened, Lily would be better off with me." That sentence, that one sentence, it was the first real crack in her mask. And I had it recorded. That night I listened to the audio over and over. Each time my chest tightened. Not just from anger. From validation. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't paranoid. She was trying to take my child. For years she had made me question my sanity. But now I had proof. And proof is power. That's when the second part of my plan began. Documentation. Everything. Every interaction. Every text. Every visit. Every whispered insult. I started keeping a journal. Dates. Times. Exact words. Patterns. It became almost obsessive. But with every entry I felt stronger. More grounded. More in control. Because for the first time, I could see the full scope of what she had done. It wasn't random cruelty. It was systematic psychological abuse. But I needed more than proof of words. I needed proof of intent. And that came sooner than I expected. 3 months later, Linda made a mistake. A big one. It happened during a family gathering at her house. Everyone was there. Daniel, his cousins, his aunt and uncle. Lily was playing upstairs. At some point, I realized she was gone too long. My stomach tightened. I went upstairs to check. And that's when I heard Linda's voice through the half-closed bedroom door. Soft, urgent, manipulative. "You don't have to stay with Mommy forever," she whispered. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. Lily's small voice trembled. "But she'll be sad." Linda's tone sharpened. "Sometimes you have to choose what's best for yourself," she said, "and you know Grandma can give you a better life." My hands went ice cold. better life. She wasn't just emotionally manipulating anymore. She was planting the idea of taking my child away. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just cruelty. It was escalation. And I had caught it. Because the recorder in my pocket was running. I left that house in a daze. Not from fear. From clarity. The war had shifted. Linda had crossed a line she could never uncross. And now, I had everything I needed. The next step of my plan took weeks. Careful, methodical, silent. I began consulting a lawyer. Secretly, a family law specialist. The first time I played him the recordings, he sat very still. When they ended, he exhaled slowly. "This is extremely serious," he said. "Is it enough?" I asked. He looked me directly in the eyes. "It's more than enough." That sentence sent a strange wave of emotion through me. Relief, validation, and something darker. Anticipation. Because I knew what was coming. But I didn't move immediately. No, Linda had tormented me for nearly a decade. Destroyed my peace. Tried to destroy my bond with my child. So when justice came, it had to be complete. Irrefutable. Unavoidable. She needed to face consequences not just privately, but publicly. So she could never hide behind her mask again. The final piece of the plan came unexpectedly. And it was perfect. Linda had always prided herself on her reputation. In the community, she was seen as warm, generous, a devoted grandmother. She volunteered at church, hosted charity events. People adored her, which meant she had everything to lose. And that's when I knew exactly how the final move would happen. Not in a courtroom first, not in private, but in the place where her image mattered most. In front of everyone. Where she would never expect it. Where she would never recover from it. The night before it all unfolded, I barely slept. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From the heavy, electric awareness that years of suffering were about to end. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart steady, my mind calm for the first time in years. Because tomorrow, Linda's world was going to collapse. And she had no idea it was coming. The day everything ended. Started like any other. Calm. Ordinary. Quiet. Which almost felt cruel, considering what was about to happen. I woke up before sunrise, the sky outside still grey and heavy. The house was silent except for the ticking of the hallway clock. For a moment, I just sat on the edge of my bed, breathing slowly. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart wasn't racing. There was only one feeling left inside me. Certainty. Because after years of being powerless, today I finally had control. The event was Linda's biggest one of the year. Her annual charity luncheon. She hosted it every spring at the community hall. It was her pride and joy. The place where she shined. Where people praised her generosity, her kindness, her devotion to family. Where she built her reputation. Which meant it was the perfect place for the truth to come out. The hall was already buzzing when we arrived. Soft piano music floated through the air. Tables covered in white cloths. Crystal glasses catching the light. The smell of fresh flowers mixed with coffee and perfume. Linda stood near the front, greeting guests with her signature warm smile. She looked radiant, confident, untouchable. When she saw me, her smile flickered for a split second. Then it returned, brighter than ever. "Oh, Amanda," she said sweetly, hugging me lightly, "I'm so glad you came." Her voice dripped with false affection. But this time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel intimidated. I just smiled back calmly, because I knew something she didn't. Her performance was about to end forever. The luncheon began normally. Speeches, polite applause, people laughing softly. Linda took the stage, glowing under the lights. She spoke about community, about love, about family, about protecting children. The irony was almost unbearable. Every word felt like a lie echoing through the room. And as she spoke, I waited, patiently, for the exact right moment. It came when she finished her speech. As applause filled the hall, she smiled proudly and said, "And I'm especially grateful for my wonderful family, who mean everything to me." That was the moment. I stood up, my chair scraping lightly against the floor. The sound seemed to cut through the room. Heads turned. Conversations quieted. Linda looked at me confused, then slightly annoyed. I walked slowly toward the stage, each step steady, deliberate. The entire room watched. When I reached the microphone, my hands felt cold, but my voice came out clear. Strong. "Family does mean everything," I said. Linda's smile tightened. "Amanda, dear, this isn't." I gently interrupted. "I think it's the perfect time," I said quietly. The room grew still. You could hear the hum of the overhead lights, the faint clinking of a glass somewhere in the back. Then I took a breath and pressed play. At first the recording was soft. Linda's voice floated through the speakers. Smooth, familiar. But then the words became clear. "You know, if anything ever happened, Lily would be better off with me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Linda froze. Her face drained of color. I pressed the next recording. "You don't have to stay with Mommy forever. Grandma can give you a better life." Gasps filled the hall. People looked at her in shock. Confusion. Disbelief. And then, horror. Linda's lips trembled. Her eyes darted around the room. "No," she whispered, This is taken out of context." But I wasn't done. The final recording played. Her voice cold, cruel, precise. "You were never really maternal. Eventually she'll choose me." The silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Linda stood there exposed. No mask, no charm, just raw truth laid bare for everyone to hear. She tried to speak, tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. Her hands shook visibly. "No, this is a misunderstanding. She's twisting things." But no one believed her. Because now, they had heard her real voice. And once people hear the truth, they can't unhear it. I stepped closer to the microphone one last time. My heart was pounding now, but not from fear. From release. Years of pain poured into my voice. "You spent years trying to make me look unstable," I said quietly. "Trying to take my daughter from me, trying to destroy our bond." Linda stared at me, her expression crumbling. I held her gaze. "But the truth," I said, "always finds a way to be heard." The fallout was immediate. Whispers spread through the room. People stepped away from Linda. Her closest friends looked at her with shock and disappointment. Some left entirely. Within minutes, her carefully built image collapsed, right in front of her. But the real consequences came later. Legal consequences. The recordings became evidence. The documentation proved a pattern of emotional manipulation and psychological abuse. A court issued a protective order. Linda was legally forbidden from contacting Lily, or approaching our home, or interfering with our family again. For the first time in nearly a decade, She had no power over us. None. The day the order was finalized, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just quiet. Steady. Peace. Like a storm that had finally passed. The biggest change, though, was in Lily. Slowly, gently, she began to heal. She stopped hesitating when she hugged me, stopped flinching when I entered the room. One night, months later, she crawled into bed beside me and whispered, "Mommy, Grandma was wrong, you never left me." Tears filled my eyes. I held her tightly. "I never will," I promised. And for the first time, I knew that promise was safe. Because the person who tried to break us was gone from our lives forever. Sometimes people ask me if I regret exposing Linda publicly, if I feel guilty about destroying her reputation. And my answer is always the same. No, because I didn't destroy her. I simply revealed who she really was. And the truth did the rest. If there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's that quiet cruelty can be more dangerous than loud abuse. Because it hides. It isolates. It makes you doubt your own reality. But the moment you stop doubting yourself, the moment you gather evidence, stand firm and speak the truth, that's when the power shifts. That's when justice begins. So if you've ever felt trapped, undermined, or silently tormented by someone who hides behind a perfect image, remember this. You are not powerless. You are not imagining it. And one day, the truth will find its voice, just like it did for me. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, make sure to like this video, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes telling the truth is the most powerful revenge of all.